Welcome to Offsides. I'm Alexa Galloway here with Peter Zampa.
This week we'll talk about the NBA regular season coming near. There will be a glaring absence in Oklahoma City.
The NHL season is already underway. Our analysts discuss if there's still a place for fighting in the NHL.
Finally, the World Series is upon us, but our analysts will discuss what's to come after the October Classic.
All this and more, Offside starts right now. The regular season has yet to start for the NBA, but the league has already lost a big name on the court. Reigning MVP Kevin Durant of Oklahoma City will be out until at least December with a fractured foot. And this Sunday, the league will experiment with a shortened 44-minute game. Michael Pia and Justin Akiva are here to break down the implications of both. Guys?
All right, thank you, Alexa. So, Justin, what do you think are going to be the implications here for not only the Thunder, but also for the entire NBA with one of their biggest superstars and reigning MVP out to start the season and to miss a significant amount of time?
Right, so when you say one of their biggest superstars, I mean, it is their biggest superstar. He's their reigning MVP, averaging 32 points per game, top scorer last year. I think the Thunder, they got no chance. I mean, they're going to go to the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but this is a huge hole for them. Westbrook, not a smart player when Durant's out, shooting the lights, like going 13 for 40. I mean, last time Durant didn't play, he attempted 35 shots, and Durant's only missed 16 games. This team is not experienced without, like, not having Durant. So what do you do from here? I mean, you play it as it is. Jeremy Lamb is new. I mean, I think he has potential, but I don't think he's ready. I think Steven Adams' shot is just as ugly as his new mustache. I mean, what's next? I mean,
yeah, and I agree. I think you make a good point with Westbrook. I definitely think he takes advantage of not being in Durant's shadow, and that's not always a good thing. But I think this has bigger implications here than just on the Thunder. This is a league-wide problem. You know, the NBA offices are not too happy right now. They have Paul George already out, who's going to miss a significant amount of time, and now Durant out too. So you're basically the only face of the NBA that you have right now. You have LeBron James, obviously, and a new team, and that's gonna generate some storylines. But then really outside of that, I mean, there's not too many big superstars that you can rely on to generate the kind of buzz and the storylines that Durant and George generate. Obviously, you have Carmelo Anthony on the Knicks. You have a couple guys on the Spurs. You have Kobe Bryant. But, I mean, how much are those guys going to generate? Nothing compared to Durant and George.
Well, I actually think the league is lucky that Kobe's coming back off an injury. You lose two guys off an injury, now you got Kobe. Kobe killed it last night, scored 27. The team looked like crap, but, I mean, it's Kobe. I think it can definitely generate enough revenue. I mean, they're lucky that it's only 68 weeks. The league is lucky that Paul George, I mean, he's out for the season, potential playoffs, but Durant is coming back eventually. OKC, they're kind of screwed. I mean, I don't see any promise. They lost Dabo Cephalosha, their only shooting guard. I mean, Jeremy Lamb, like I said, has potential. Andre Robertson, they want to start him, and he's a sophomore that's shooting 15% from three last year. I mean,
yeah, definitely some problems coming up in Oklahoma City. But I want to talk about, we were just talking about the league, and the league is trying some different things also when it comes to lengths of games. There's been some complaints about the length of the season, the length of games. So the league is trying a shortened 44-minute game to see how that works out. Some of the players don't agree with it. They think they should just shorten this season. What do you think? Do you think a shortened game could be beneficial for the league?
I don't like this. I mean, it hasn't, the clock has never changed. What's the point of doing it now? I mean, I know injuries, I know this, but one of the great things about the regular season is that records get broken. And you don't have enough time to break 100 points with 48 minutes. Why reduce it? I mean, like, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in 48 minutes. How do you expect half of these people? I mean, Kobe hasn't scored over 60 in years, and he's the second closest. He had 81 in Toronto in 05. I mean, I don't like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're taking a fun part out of the game. And also, I think, you know, a lot of players are saying, and Dirk Nowitzki, LeBron James, they're both saying just shorten the season. But I think that also takes away from a lot of the fun. And I think maybe by the time you get to the playoffs, you're not necessarily left with the best teams. I think when you hit 82 games, you are left with the best teams from each conference, unquestionably. So I think they should just keep it as it is in regards to both the length of the games and the amount of games. But that's all we have for NBA. Thank you.
The World Series is underway, but that's not stopping us from addressing the future in Major League Baseball. Ryan Preventure, Nick Neville, and Zach Shandell are here to discuss who does have the brightest future.
Thanks, Pete. So, guys, who does have the brightest future in the MLB?
I think right away you got to look at Washington. Yeah, they're 2 out of the last 3 years, they kind of batted out of the playoffs earlier than we would have expected.
Right.
But, I mean, they kind of had their little playoff introduction. I feel like over the next few years, Harper's going to develop. They're going to have Ian Desmond, Anthony Rendon's up and coming. They're going to have some pretty good years in the coming future.
Right. Now, I also feel like you have to take a really good look at their starting rotation.
Absolutely.
One of the best in the big leagues. You have Strasburg going to return. Jordan Zimmerman still doing his thing. Gio Gonzalez is signed for a few more years. Doug Fister, can't forget about him. So I feel
it's
like
tough to believe.
Taylor
that,
Roark, too. I mean, he had a good season, 15 and 10 as a
absolutely.
5 starter.
It's tough to believe they didn't go further based on that pitching rotation. I think they had the lowest ERA in at least the National League. Why didn't they go further?
I think it was like under 3, but
yeah.
I feel like for the next few years, definitely look out for them.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, looking a little further into the future, the Chicago Cubs. I mean, I never want to go out on a limb and predict them to win the World Series, but they're going to be a force to reckon with. They're going to have an infield in a few years of Anthony Rizzo at first base, Javier Baez at second, Addison Russell, who they picked up from the A's for Samardzija at shortstop, and Chris Bryant at third base. I think that's going to be insane.
I also feel like you can never underestimate the things that Theo Epstein can do up there. So.
What about pitching, though, for them?
Their pitching, I mean, it needs a little bit of work. But, I mean, as Nick just said, Epstein can use his magic and probably get some big-name free agents.
We know that in Boston.
Yeah, so. I heard maybe John Lester coming there, so I don't know, something to look out for. I also feel like maybe in a similar vein to the Royals, you could definitely take a look at the Astros.
Right.
They've been doing well recently, like 50 wins for like 3 seasons, and then last year they got to the 70-win mark. They're doing some really good things. Jose Altuve, one of the best second basemen in the bigs.
Of course.
Right, yeah, for sure.
George Springer, before he got hurt, was doing amazingly. I mean, his average is a little low, but he has some power. And Jonathan Singleton's going to come into his own as well.
Yeah, so I feel like they have some really good young prospects that are coming up and going to make an impact immediately.
I think with prospects, it's tough sometimes because they don't always pan out. We saw that in Boston. I mean, I want to talk about Boston. I think they're going to be good in the future. I mean, first to worst.
Absolutely.
And then back to first,
Anthony Renato, definitely.
But I think they have a lot of young guys, and they showed a lot of those young guys this year, but they just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
And that's the fear I have with teams like, the Astros.
Right.
But you see with the Royals, you just got to wait a few years.
Yeah, you just got to wait it out.
So to think that prospects are going to pan out immediately and help your team go to the playoffs and be a better team, you got to hold off a few years.
I'm not expecting the Cubs to go to the playoffs next year.
Yeah, maybe not even the Astros, but I feel like in the coming years, you can see
the
the Cubs.
Astros aren't going to be close with the Angels and the A's and Seattle.
That's true.
For a few years.
With that move into the AL West.
And I mean, the Rangers just unfortunately had a lot of injuries.
So let's talk about this year. What about free agents? Quickly list off, where do you think some key free agents are going this year?
I'm like from Boston, so my heart tells me John Lester's coming back home. I feel like that'd be really sweet, and then you almost get Cespedes as a steal. So that's where my pick would be for Lester.
Great. What about you?
I think it's kind of a given. The Red Sox are going to get a big-name pitcher in the free agent market this
Sox and
offseason.
Yankees are going to spend, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Scherzer heading to Boston, and I like the idea of him in St. Louis accompanying Wainwright. They can maybe
that would be a crazy 1-2 punch for sure.
Exactly. And Russell Martin is a free agent. He's been very productive over the last few years, and I think a return to Los Angeles is in order. I mean, A.J. Ellis did not do the job this year, and we all know the Dodgers have the money.
Definitely. A lot of guys on the move this post-off season. We'll see how it pans out. Thanks a lot. That's all we got for MLB.
The hockey season is here once again, but the future of the Florida Panthers is at stake after a franchise low attendance record. Heading up east, the Bruins are off to a slow start, and fighting seems to be phasing out with an all-time low percentage per game. Is there still room for fighting on the ice? Kim O'Connell and our NHL analysts discuss what's happening in the league. Guys?
Thanks, Alexa. I'm here with our NHL analysts, Jake Reiser and Jane Rose. We're only the second week into the NHL season, but there is no shortage of topics to talk about. So, guys, Florida Panthers, they had an embarrassingly low attendance on Monday night against the Ottawa Senators. Their arena holds almost 21,000 people. They filled it with maybe 7,000. What do we think? I mean, is there room for 2 teams in Florida?
7,311. That's the number at the BB&T Center in Sunrise, Florida. It's just abysmal. I really think that there isn't room for 2 teams in Florida. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they've got the money, they've got the success with guys like Steven Stamkos and Ryan Callahan. They've got the success and leadership with Steve Yzerman. I think that Florida, even with the moves they made during the offseason, getting guys like Dave Bolin, Willie Mitchell, re-signing Roberto Luongo, it's just not going to be enough. And as much as they even had success in the draft, getting the #1 pick in Aaron Ekblad, it's not enough to fill the seats. I mean, maybe if they were winning consistently, I don't know what you think, but
honestly, the team could be moved anywhere in Canada, and it would be more successful than it is right now. The Florida Panthers will never be embraced. They've never been embraced, especially with Tampa being 250 miles away. It's a successful club, and then this one that's losing has always lost. It's never going to be.
I mean, even in the 20 years that they've been a team, they've never had success. They made it to the playoffs with like maybe three times,
3 winning seasons,
and they never won a playoff series.
They had a little bit of culture early with the Rat Pack, and they used to throw the plastic rats on the ice. But honestly, since then, it's been a nosedive.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a place for them there either. So speaking of changes, you know, maybe in the next few years they'll end up in Canada or elsewhere. But I mean, big changes in the NHL. There is such a lack of fighting, and with maybe like less than 1 fight per game now. Is there still a place for fighting in the NHL?
Call me old-fashioned. I will always think there's a place for fighting in the NHL. It's what makes the league unique. You have these guys that are scoring and are putting up great numbers, but at the same time, what makes them such an asset is their ability to take off the gloves when their team needs momentum. You look at Jonathan Toews, you look at Claude Giroux, Mike Richards, all putting up the big numbers and not afraid to take the gloves off when their team needs it.
I think that there's a different way to police the game. I think that fighting is just becoming too dangerous. I remember an incident opening night 2013 between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens. Colton Orr and George Parros. Orr hits Parros in the head, leaves him on the ice. He's out for the rest of the season. He's barely conscious. I mean, with the way things are looking, it's the closest we've come to death on the ice in the NHL. It's just really becoming a liability.
That's a one-time thing. I mean, concussions mostly come from bad
hits.
How many concussions do you hear from fights? Very few. So, I mean, I'm with Jane on this one. I think it's entertaining. The fans want it. There are players who are known for their fighting.
Still, within the NHL, there's already a culture change within the lineups. You're looking at the fourth lines of most of the NHL teams now. They're not built to be tough. They're built for speed. You've got the Bruins' fourth line. You got rid of Sean Thornton in the offseason. You brought up Bobby Robbins, who is like Sean Thornton in the fact that he could drop the gloves like he did on opening night. And then you send him back down because his play just doesn't match up to it. I think if you're going to have fighting, you have to have the play to live up to it. And right now, there just aren't enough players who can match that skill.
All right, well, speaking of Bruins, you brought up a couple Bruins players there. What is going on with our hometown team? They are now 2-4 after last night's loss to the Montreal Canadiens. What do we do here?
It's a lack of defense. I mean, you can put some of the blame on Tuukka Rask. He hasn't stepped up the way he has. But I'm going to put a lot of it on Peter Chiarelli. Giving up Johnny Boychuk was one of the worst moves he's made in his tenure as GM of the Boston Bruins. It was really not liked throughout the entire organization. As much as it was a $3 million salary cap hit that we got rid of, his play just makes up for it. He already has 2 power play goals. He's had 6 power play points in 5 seasons with the Bruins. He already has 6 power play points in 2 games with the Islanders right now. His production is a lot. He provides great protection in front, and I think giving up Johnny Boychuk was the wrong move.
I didn't know you have something to say about this.
Now you're talking defense. I'm going to go offense. The loss of Iginla has proven to be so costly. No one is going to replace his 30 goals. No one. You can put a lot of pressure on Bergeron. It's not going to do it. We need to see guys like Lucic and Krejci step up to the play we know they're capable of.
All right, what about Tuukka? I mean, he's supposed to be the best goalie in the NHL. I mean, he didn't play in one of the games last week. It was against Colorado, I think. And he got taken out of the game last night. I mean, if you're going to be the best goalie in the NHL, you can't be being taken out of games only a week and a half into the season.
You know, there's been a lot of parity in the crease in the NHL this season already. Henrik Lundqvist for the Rangers hasn't looked too stellar. The starting goalie for the Anaheim Ducks, John Gibson, he got sent down to the AHL for 2 conditioning games because he's been looking really rough. So I'm not going to put this all on Tuukka. I think offense wins games, and signing Simone Gagne to a 1-year, $600,000 contract isn't going to do it.
All right. Thanks, guys. That'll do it for today's NHL segment.
That's all for this episode of Offsides.
If you'd like to contact us, email us at offsides@butv10.com. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook.
On behalf of our entire crew, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.